Hello, everyone. My name is James, Notorious Banker. This is my special commentary about Bank of America's issue with the state of California's EDD debit cards, or unemployment debit cards, if you will. Now, I've been meaning to do a video or a podcast. I have a podcast called The Notorious Banker as well about this the last month, but I haven't been able to find the correct words on how to describe what I believe is going on over there. Now, I'm not from California. I'm from New Mexico, but I do have a couple of feathers on my cap. I used to work at Bank of America for 13 years. I used to be a teller, 20-hour teller, 40-hour teller, teller supervisor, banker, relationship manager. I've done it all. I worked my way up the chain and worked hard for 13 long years, and I would be celebrating my 15th anniversary at Bank of America on December 7th of this year. I was terminated in 2018, and we could definitely discuss that a whole other time. I've discussed it in my podcast. But I loved working at the bank. I loved helping customers. I loved assisting people. I think there's nothing better than actually doing something right and getting the job done correctly. And I was really good at it. I mean, I was number one in sales pretty much the entire time I was at Bank of America, which, I mean, with Wells Fargo and everything going on, overselling was the name of the game. Well, I was one of the best ones, and I was really good. But I love the customers, and I love customer service. I'm familiar with how Bank of America works, being there so long. I've been out of banking for 2 years now. I created a podcast called The Notorious Banker. I've started something of a consumer advocacy movement on Twitter and on YouTube with this YouTube channel that I have here as well. I'm doing TikToks. I'm doing any method of social media that is geared towards younger people and older folks too, in order to kind of train them on how Bank of America ticks, how Wells Fargo ticks, how these big banks kind of operate in 2020 America here, because it's a lot different than it was 15 years ago. Hell, it's a lot different than it even was 5 years ago. So I've had the banking experience of 13 years, and the conversations I've had in the last 2 years about basically the downfall of big banking, it has been enlightening. And this EDD debit card thing in California is no exception. I'm pretty stunned about what's going on. And I am not stunned about the apathy that Bank of America is showing with this EDD debit card stuff. So I wanted to get that out of the way. I am a consumer advocate. I work really hard to help reunite people with their money, whether it be fraud claims or fees that were charged unjustly or just bad customer service issues, because I was that troubleshooter in my bank. So I am quite familiar with how moving things up the chain is at Bank of America. I've been to California exactly 4 times in my life. I've spent 2 nights there. But I've seen that damn card right there. That debit card I have seen before in New Mexico. I've actually assisted quite a few people with EDD debit cards over the years. Frankly, I don't even know what image that is on the card itself. That's how oblivious I am to the state of California, but I have seen that debit card. My experience with unemployment, just checks and debit cards, goes back a decade. Bank of America used to operate unemployment in the state of New Mexico for a brief time till it went over to Wells Fargo. And every Monday we were packed. We had a line out the door, and it was a bunch of people just looking there to cash their $200-300 check just to get by. They were out of a job. They were out of money. They needed that to eat. What I noticed was, and part of my job working at Bank of America was, I was what's called a lobby leader. So when you had all those people with unemployment checks or unemployment debit cards standing in line, you go, say, Mr. Johnson, you could always set up a Bank of America account over here. And instead of getting that card, you could have your unemployment direct deposited into your bank account. That way you could have a checking account with us. We'll recognize you. We'll know who you are. That way you get your money a little bit faster. That way you don't have to stand in the line next time. It was a method of acquiring accounts. Unemployment, these contracts that have been kind of negotiated all across the country with all these major banks, I really do believe that it was a method of acquiring customers. They saw it as a way of saying, hey, this is a new market. We have Bank of America logos on the debit card, on checks and paperwork. Maybe we can get them in here. Maybe we can get some accounts going on. Well, that was 10 years ago. My opinion about banking in the last 10 years has totally changed. Banking is not about, the more customers, the more accounts, the better. It's about quality. And you will hear that a lot in banking whenever you're a salesperson now. You can have 100 accounts, but if they all opened up $25 checking accounts, your boss is going to look at you like, what the hell is that? People who are unemployed, people who are not working are not buying houses. People who are unemployed, people who are not working aren't buying cars. They're not going to grow their money. They're going to spend their money, and they're not going to have a lot of it. and you get someone who has a piece of plastic that has a few $100 in it every single week, they're going to stand in your long line and they're going to take up your valuable room, taking away a spot from someone who is going to open an account, and they're just going to get money, walk out, pay the bills, and not even think twice of you. Banks hate that. Banks hate the fact that these people are taking up space in their branches to open up, accounts. There's no accounts being opened by them. So these customers that are there to open accounts are seeing the long line and saying, "How with this? I'm not going to this bank." So I could tell Bank of America has a disdain for this. And not to mention, Bank of America's push to go digital, meaning that, Zelle, mobile payments, things that are going on, direct deposit, they try to push on almost every customer, and ATM usage. Cash is not really as prevalent inside bank branches anymore. They don't order as much cash as they did, say, like 10 years ago. So part of it is with all these people unemployed, they're running out of money. So what happened in California in the summertime? And you can look at all the media reports because I cover them in my podcast. A lot of Bank of America branches closed down over the summer during the height of the pandemic and during the height of the unemployment rate in California. And a lot of them just, said, circumstances beyond our control or virus-related concerns. No, in reality, they didn't want to order more money because it cost them money to move that crap around all across the state and the country. And they didn't want to have this money in the branch just inevitably give out to someone who is not technically an account holder. That unemployment debit card does not make you an account holder, according to Bank of America. You just have a card with their logo on it is all. So basically, I think Bank of America just basically dislikes anyone who has that card. And I can tell you that in the 10, plus years that I dealt with customers face to face in an office, I saw that card quite a few times. And the one thing that Bank of America branches don't have, and I'm including California in this, is a lot of information in regards to the EDD program. It's a separate 1-800 number, separate customer service number. The Bank of America actual consumer branch has nothing to do with that debit card. It's almost like two entirely different companies. It's like Walmart and Sam's Club. The same owners or the same idea came out of both of those places, but in reality, it's two different stores. That's the way Bank of America thinks of unemployment debit cards like that. EDD is not a Bank of America account. So whenever someone would come into New Mexico, and I did have a lot of California transplants that say, "Hey, I need help with this unemployment debit card from California," I couldn't look them up on the system. I had no information on that. I would do a search for EDD stuff on the intranet site, and they would give me a phone number. I didn't even have access to the website back in the day. I would say, "Here's a phone number, call them, and maybe they could help you." I know people are trying to call this phone number now to this day, and they're getting 3, 4, 5-hour waits. How some people wait all day only to be hung up on. I know that that's basically their only means of customer service. But what's going on in the last couple of months is something that's been really bugging me, and it's actually part of my consumer advocacy program that I have going on here. Is people are getting ripped off. Money is being taken away. Money is being frozen by Bank of America and taken out of their accounts, but money is actually being stolen by someone, and I don't know who, thousands upon thousands of dollars at a time. And it's confusing. It's a twofold problem because you have Bank of America freezing accounts for God knows what reasons. I'll give you my opinions in a second. And you have people having money stolen from them. I see all these debates on all these news sites about what's the cause of it. There's about 4 or 5 different theories that I have about this card, and I really wanted to share them with you because I think you'll have a little bit more insight as to what's going on with EDD once I'm through with you here, because in reality, you may have a different problem than the next person, but all in all, Bank of America is throwing you all under the bus, and a lot of you are losing thousands of dollars. A lot of you are losing your place to live. You're losing the opportunities to eat and buy things. Hell, you might lose your life caused by the stress of all this BS that Bank of America is putting on you. Now, like I said, I work there as a Bank of America manager. I understand how the apathy is for a lot of those customer service reps. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because every time they answer the phone, it's someone's horror story. And there's hundreds of thousands of horror stories right now. And they're not empowered. And Bank of America likes to use that word power. It's even in their slogan. What would you like the power to do? They don't like to give power to those low-level associates to help those people. And those people can't help whenever they're talking to you on the phone, and you're screwed because of it. And if you lose your money, you're having to wait 30, 45, 60 days, if not more, in order to get your money back, only to be denied. And it's happened to quite a few people that I've talked to. So I'm going to break it down in several parts here. So you may see this weird lag in between videos and segments because I wanted to make sure that I get every single thing in. That way I can give you kind of an idea of what I think is going on and some of my theories. The first part of it is going to be card security itself. And I want to get into something. Someone was talking about, well, the cards don't have a chip on it. Well, I'll get into why it doesn't really matter and why there's certain things about not having the chip card that actually benefit Bank of America more than you. All right, so this is the second part of my little video here. And the thing about it that bugs me the most is the complaints that Bank of America did not put chips on these debit cards. I'm going to slightly defend Bank of America on this one, just for a second, don't mind you. So I think Bank of America never realized, I think the world never realized how many damn people were going to be unemployed. So I just think having this simple card stock, this simple thing that was never meant to be a permanent card. I mean, this was not a card that you plan on keeping in your pocket for 4 years, because the simple fact of the matter is you're only going to be unemployed theoretically for weeks, not years. So this card was only going to be temporary. They see it as a cost thing. They're like, are we going to equip these cards with chips in there at a cost? I don't even know how much they cost, but you do hundreds of thousands of them. I'm sure it costs hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to do. They kind of saw it as a cost thing, saying, hey, well, these people are only going to use it for a few weeks anyway. Their unemployment stops whenever they get a new job. So it's really not a long-term thing. Bank of America started issuing chip cards on their consumer banking debit cards and credit cards about 2013, 14 or so, whenever I was still working there. So it's something that they've been doing. They just choose not to do them here because I frankly think that they just thought that, hey, these are temporary cards. It's like whenever you get like a rebate card from, getting an iPhone from Verizon or something, it's a card that's meant to be used once or twice. And the whole method was basically treated like an ATM card, not a debit card. So the chip card thing, I understand Bank of America's point of view on that, although it's not a good one, that they're just wanting to be cheap and they didn't want to have EMV chip cards on there. The second thing that bugs me the most about it is the thought that EMV chip cards are more secure. Okay, so Europe had them for, 20 years before America did. So they've been around a long time, okay? So they have existed. Just because they weren't in America doesn't mean that they weren't ever around. They were in Europe and whatnot. So this was something that was not new in the credit and debit card world. But here's the thing here. A lot of people say, well, these are more secure because it has a chip on it and it's harder to duplicate. Harder doesn't mean that it's impossible to duplicate. There's some amazing people out there. I used to be the computer geek in my family whenever I was 10, 11 years old, but that was 25 years ago. Now the computer geek in your family that's 11 or 12 years old now in 2020 can hack into the biggest websites. They can learn how to scam people. People got smarter and people know how to do things. So much like the people on the Titanic who said it was unsinkable, and then the guy in the movie says, well, she's made of iron, sir. She most definitely can sink. EMV chip cards can most definitely be compromised. So don't go with that false sense of security saying, hey, my card doesn't have a chip on it, means I'm not protected. No, the security for the chip card is not for you. Okay, it is for the businesses, it's for the banks. It makes the transaction more secure because there's a liability to whenever fraud is committed on you. Who's responsible? Was it the bank for not providing the chip card or the business for not being able to accept the chip card? You have absolutely nothing to do with it. Theoretically, if you're a victim of fraud, you're protected. The whole fact of the matter is the chip card is just going to basically say, well, who's gonna pay the bill for this guy who lost all his money? That's all it is. So, go on the dark web. Just honestly, just Google, chip card readers or chip card duplicators and all that. You'll be able to find equipment to be able to duplicate chip cards. I'm not saying go buy it. I'm just saying, hey, it's illegal stuff happens all the time. And Bank of America knows it. Wells Fargo knows it. All these big banks know it. Fraud happens all the time. When Americans travel to Europe, fraud happens on their credit and debit cards. Ask all of the reporters and all of the athletes that went to Sochi, Russia for the Winter Olympics a few years back. And they'll tell you that their cell phones got hacked into, some of their credit cards got compromised. That's just the way that it works in other parts of the world, sad to say. So chip cards do not basically say, hey, I'm more secure. They have those RFID cards as well. And why the hell does Kohl's and JCPenney sell wallets that prevent RFID signals from going through your pants and into your cards? because you know what? They're not secure, and they're basically selling you a piece of clothing, a wallet that says, hey, protect your cards. The chip card means absolutely nothing in terms of security for you. It does not prove anything as to whose responsibility is, except for, hey, who's going to pay the bill for that. Now, here's the issue that's been going on with a lot of fraud stuff with Bank of America. Yes, there's people who have actually had purchases, like online purchases in other countries and other states, people buying gas, people buying food and all that with these debit cards. And I understand that, and it sucks. But mostly I've seen a lot of people get $1,000 withdrawals at Bank of America ATMs, which is the maximum amount that you can withdraw at Bank of America ATMs, by the way. Several times in a week, they'll max out those daily limits and they'll bleed the person dry one day at a time, $1,000 at a time from their unemployment debit cards. So basically, who's responsible for that? Well, that's a slippery slope here. So I looked at this website, it's squareup.com, and just note here, Square has nothing to do with Bank of America, but they have a really cool page about myths of the liability shift. One of the myths says the liability shift applies to all fraudulent charges at your business. And then it says, this one's a bit complicated. Many people think that the liability shift will make you responsible for all fraud at your business. Not the case. The liability shift actually only applies to a small subset of fraudulent transactions known as card-present counterfeit EMV fraud. Essentially, that means if the fraudster pays with the counterfeit EMV card and you process the payment with the mag stripe transaction, the stripe on the back of the card, you can be held liable. Reason being that if you have processed it as an EMV transaction, meaning you inserted the chip, the fraud would have been detected. Another way to think about it is that liability shifts to the party with the lesser technology. And it says for fraudulent charges related to counterfeit mag stripe cards, which does happen, duplicate cards. I saw it all the time at Bank of America. I still hear about it now. And fraudulent charges associated with a counterfeit EMV card on an EMV reader. And notice how in parentheses it says, which hardly ever happens. Hardly does not mean it never happens. Hardly means it happens. Someone cracked the code, probably. So someone figured out a way to make it happen, and they made it happen. Of course, these cards don't have chips. Of course, they just have stripes. So if you're basically harping on the fact that this technology is only on there, then it's a hell of a lot easier to hack, right? So it should be that the bank is responsible, right? Well, I guess so. But here it says here, with counterfeit EMV card on an EMV reader, the banks will still absorb these costs in most cases. The same is true with lost and stolen cards and online fraud. So here's the thing. People have their card used at Bank of America ATMs. They put, some crook puts a card in, takes out $1,000, gets it out, and no one's the wiser. So what do you do whenever you call Bank of America and said, hey, someone stole my card and used it at Bank of America at the ATM? And then Bank of America's going to go, did you use your PIN? I didn't do it. Well, it looks like someone used the PIN and it was valid and there was no incorrect PIN being entered. So it looks to be a valid charge. You're supposed to protect your PIN at all time. I never got my card. My card was stolen. My card was in my wallet at all times. Did you have someone around you? No, I've been alone, but yet my card is being used at some ATM somewhere. And you can file a claim at Bank of America and they'll wait 30 to 45, 60 days and they'll deny you because the simple fact that their machine is going to say that, hey, someone entered a PIN invalidly, basically says, hey, it's this person who did it, and this person is lying. That's Bank of America's MO with transactions that happen on the consumer banking side. I talk to customers all the time that said, hey, someone made $1,000 purchase at a Target in Florida, and I'm in California. And Bank of America will decline it, saying, well, someone used your debit card and entered the PIN incorrectly at the terminal over there at Target in Florida. So we know it's you because the PIN was entered validly. And then also, you've been to Target at one point in time in the last 2 years in another state. Well, just because I went to Target before doesn't mean I was at Target then when the fraud happened to me. Bank of America always finds an out to blame you for the fraud. And that's what they're doing to a lot of these customers. So here's the deal. When you call Bank of America and say, hey, I have fraud and it happened at Bank of America, do they check their cameras? No. They check behind the scenes to see if the PIN was entered correctly. And if it was, then you're liable because someone obviously knows the PIN and someone obviously is probably you, since you're the one that picked the PIN more than likely, right? That's what Bank of America is doing. The apathy that they have for these people who are committing fraud and the silence that they have whenever the media is trying to contact them or whenever customers are trying to contact them about this is just ridiculous. This is truly happening, folks. So basically, let's say I stole your debit card and your card number was 1234. You'd be surprised how many people use that as their PIN number. It's terrifying. And I stole your card, I entered in 1234, and I got that money out. Is Bank of America gonna just take the loss and they're just gonna give you back $1,000? And they're just gonna take the $1,000 hit knowing that I took the $1,000 and there's no way to track me down? Hell no. If there's 300,000 people potentially getting defrauded by crooks out there, then Bank of America saying, well, 350,000 people, multiply that by 1,000 a day, we could lose a lot of money. So it's easier to just piss these people off and say that they did it because we don't want them as a customer anyway because they're broke and unemployed, right? So they're going to go ahead and just do that. And they'll say, hey, we'll move on. These people aren't ever going to be millionaires. We don't want them as customers. We don't want them in our branches either. So, yeah, we're just going to deny the claim. I've said it for 2 years, and you can listen to previous podcasts. You can look at my tweets. Bank of America would rather lose you as a customer on the account of $1,000, and they'll do the math. They'll say, long term, can we make $1,000 off of this person? If you're just an everyday worker, paycheck to paycheck type person, doesn't even have enough credit to get a credit card, will never buy a house or a vehicle with them. They're like, well, what the hell are we dealing with this person for? Let's just deny them, because they're just going to be a drain on our resources. And they're just going to cause all this. We're going to spend so much money trying to acquire this customer, and we're never going to get anything back from it. That's the way big banking thinks. That's the way Bank of America thinks. So, of course, they're going to deny your ATM claim when it happens at their ATM. And then anytime that you go to a store and, someone used their PIN, someone stole your card and they used their PIN to take money off of your card, guess what? Bank of America is going to say, well, someone entered the PIN in correctly, so it had to have been you, or you must have given your PIN to something else. They're going to find a way to blame you for anything that happens with that card when the money is lost. And you can search Bank of America on Twitter. You'll see a lot of things. You'll see me on there. I'm on there a lot because I'm omnipresent, because this happens hundreds of times a week to different people all across the country, and not just with unemployment debit cards. It happens all the time, and Bank of America just denies claims left and right. They don't even try. They don't even try to actually look at these claims because they're overwhelmed. One, I understand that. There's a lot more of them, and there's a lot less people at work on them. But secondly, I think they just came to the realization that, hey, you know what? Are we going to pay back this person $1,000 for someone stealing $1,000 from us off of their debit card? Hell no, we're not going to do it. Believe me when I say I do believe that is the main reason right there. So don't get hung up on this chip card technology stuff. It means nothing. Like I said, people get compromised all the time with it. Fraud is still rampant. Search Wells Fargo, search Bank of America. You will see that people get defrauded all across the country and the world with chip debit cards, and that's the norm at these places now. They don't have non-chip debit cards at any of these places anymore. So they've increased their technology and their quote unquote security, but it's still happening. Which, to use my Titanic theory, is the debit card is made of iron, so she most definitely will sink. Trust me, the chip means nothing. It can still be compromised. All right, another part of this I wanted to talk about is the activation of these cards. A lot of people are claiming that their cards were activated even before they received them in the mail, and their accounts were drained even before they received the cards in the mail. That one's tricky because I think one of two things with that, okay? One, it's an inside job, meaning that there's some people with information, with customer information, and they're using that, which is entirely possible. Bank of America's branch has a lot of customer information on those computers. Now, those computers don't have information for people on EDD, but if it's anything like the consumer banking side of things, of course, their social security numbers, their date of birth, all this stuff is going to be on there. So there is a possibility that if there is an internal case of associate misconduct, and there was a story in the Charlotte Observer this past week of a Bank of America market executive getting arrested for taking bribes, for God's sakes, for facilitating loans for people, trying to get them through underwriting and all that, then believe me when I say associate misconduct is possible. I have seen bankers embezzle money. I've seen one of my coworkers in Las Cruces, New Mexico, get arrested for embezzling money at a branch. and we heard all about it. She got fired on the spot, and this is something that legitimately happens in the banking world, and it's sad and it's upsetting. It pisses me off, to be frank with you. So associate misconduct can be one thing. So maybe someone has the Bank of America EDD information. They have a list of names. They have social security numbers, dates of birth, and all this stuff. And maybe they give it to some crook who knows what to do, finds a way to kind of essentially activate cards on Bank of America's website. Now I know what you're thinking here. They're thinking, well, like, how can they activate cards that aren't there? Well, let's just say that you activate a card that's not there. You figure out what the card number is, and you figure out what the 3-digit code in the back is and the zip code or the social or whatever and all that, then you're home free. Then if that card is activated, you can use that information, because basically you don't have to swipe anything or insert any chip anywhere. You can go on Amazon and buy $1,000 of Amazon gift cards and then sell them on eBay for $900, and then you get that money PayPal, and boom, that money's in your account. Crime like this happens all the time. It sucks. It's unfortunate, but it's part of the world of banking. I've seen so many people get fraud committed on them in just the silliest ways, and Bank of America giving them a hard time, Wells Fargo giving them a hard time. So associate misconduct is top of my list on how this can possibly be done. But I wanted to show something on Bank of America's EDD website that really, it triggered me in a way that I can't believe. So as I mentioned, I worked at Bank of America since 2005. The one knock that I always had on Bank of America's website, their online banking site, is it's like the crappiest, oldest thing in the world. And you'll hear them on CNBC talking about how, oh, we're a tech company at Bank of America. Okay, so you can't even use an exclamation point for your password. You know how you can use a special character. Most people use special characters 30 years after the internet was invented. You cannot use an exclamation point as part of your password on Bank of America's online banking. Their requirements are like 8 to 20 characters, and it can contain letters, numbers, and only a couple of special characters. And it's really limited, and it really upset a lot of my customers, and it upset me because I use really difficult passwords these days after being on the internet since I was 10 years old. That's just the way that I am. So Bank of America's consumer banking website's always been shoddy and old school, and I laugh whenever they rave about their technology. But I wanted to show you the EDD website because it's something that it blows my mind. It's a very simple, it's almost too simple. It almost looks like one of those phishing websites that, you get something from Bank of America in the email, in your email account, and all of a sudden it's a phishing attempt to basically steal your info. This website looks scary. It is probably the lowest rent website in the world, and I had a GeoCities page in the late 90s, okay? So take a look at this here. I'm gonna go to activate my card. And you go there, and then it says card number. Well, you pretty much can't activate a card if you don't have the card number, right? I'm going to share a little tip with you here. And this is something that Bank of America I don't know if they do them anymore, but I used to issue temporary debit cards inside a bank branch for 13 years. They're all in sequence. All of them are in sequence, okay? So there was a pattern to that, and any personal banker, relationship manager, branch manager, whatever, can attest to this. They give you temporary debit cards to give to your customers during account opening, or if they lost their card or whatever. It's a service that they hate doing now because it impacts their sales, because there's all these people waiting for replacement debit cards whenever people wanting to open up accounts are waiting there as well for a long time. So they despise it. And at one point they were going to get rid of those debit cards. Wells Fargo did this month, mind you. But the one thing about those temporary debit cards that they gave us was they're all in sequence. So I'm going to give you an example, and this isn't a real number. I'm going to switch it up here. So it would be 410000000000000001. Okay, so 1 is the last number. And then the next debit card in your batch of 20 debit cards would be 3 numbers off. So it'd be 4100000000000004. So 01 and 04. The next card would be 13 numbers up. So 4100000000000017. So it would go 1, 4, 17. And then it'd be 20, 33, 36, 49. It would be this sequence. You know how you take those standardized tests and they say, what's the next number in the sequence? 1, 4, 7, 11, 15, 19. Cards skip 3 numbers and 13 numbers on Bank of America debit card badges. Now, I'm not talking out of turn with this stuff. So if someone theoretically figured out what a temporary card number was and they wanted to try to scam someone, well, good luck. You're not going to be able to do it, because if those cards aren't activated, you can't steal anything because they're not assigned to someone anyway. So here's the thing with that temporary debit card thing. I don't know if they're in sequence or not with these EDD cards, but it wouldn't surprise me if the card numbers were in sequence. So what does it matter? Well, it matters a lot whenever you go to Bank of America's ancient EDD website here. So I'm going to go to it, and I'm just going to enter in a random number. And I'm going to do something stupid, something that wouldn't be a real number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So whenever you enter in an incorrect card number, in most places, Amazon, any place you're buying something, or any normal bank, whenever you're trying to activate a card, you'll hit continue and they'll say, hey, that's an incorrect card number, right? So I hit continue and I'm waiting, and then it says verify my identity. Well, how the hell am I going to verify my identity if that's not even a real card number? What is that? What is the point of this next screen? It shouldn't even take me to that screen if I knew that I put in a BS card number. So I verify my identity and I'm not a robot. So I'm hitting continue again. Very slow. And trust me when I say probably all these EDD cards have the same expiration date on it. Let's just say it's August 2022. Social Security number, this is where the fraud would probably come in. I really think the fraud is going to happen here. So there's only so many combinations of Social Security numbers, right? So this is where I think internal theft is possible. And then the 3-digit security code. There's only 1,000 different ways it can be, right? Okay, so here's the thing here. So let's just say that you got the number correctly, the actual card number correctly, and you're not a robot, and it takes you to all this stuff. You already know the answers to these expiration dates because they're likely all the same. Social Security number and 3-digit security code are the only things that you need. What if you're a hacker, a very smart hacker, and all of a sudden you found a way, you found a program that can try a million different combinations of those things, and it'll take you to the next page. Well, I'm not going to be able to go to the next page here because I don't have that information. But basically, what's going to happen is Bank of America is allowing people to even get to that next step, not even saying that the card is valid or not valid. So you can try it all the time, and it's not going to lock you out. And if you're able to find a way to circumvent that CAPTCHA that's saying I'm not a robot, you can try a million times. So if you're smart enough, you can whip up a program, and you can whip up this program and say, hey, I'm going to try to find a way to activate these cards before these people get them, because I know what the sequence on the card numbers is. It starts 1, 4, 17, 20, 33, and so forth. So I really think that this is a big thing. So I do believe that associate misconduct can be one part of it. Plus, I really do believe if you have some A-kid out there, some computer nerd who knows what the hell they're doing, they can spend all day on this crappy website. And this website sucks. It is literally like the worst website ever. And you can try any card number. See, I'm back to the card number page here. And let's just say that that card number that it gave was wrong. So let's try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Oh, maybe it's one number off. So I'm going to click continue again. It doesn't tell me that it's wrong. It's taking me to the next step already. If you have some computer program that can do 1,000 of those a second, and you know that the unemployment debit cards always start with the first 8 digits, you basically only have to worry about the last 8 digits of that card number in order to find out if it's activated. And believe me when I say I am blown away by how smart people are. I'm on TikTok now with my project, and to see how inventive younger people are these days just blows my mind, with video editing, with just all these tips and tricks that I wish I would have known as a kid. Well, guess what? Some people don't deal with TikTok, and some people learn how to do computer fraud. So here's the thing here. So I'm not necessarily blaming one side or the other. I am saying that there is a possibility that Bank of America associate misconduct is a big part of it, in conjunction with some crook out there somewhere. And why do I think the cards are in sequence with Bank of America's EDD cards? The simple fact that 350,000 of those accounts were frozen. Maybe those 350,000 accounts met a pattern of sequence and card numbers, and then maybe, just maybe, Bank of America just said, "Oh crap, we need to fix this because here's the leak. Here's the way that we're going to get this ship to sync is because all these card numbers are pretty much the same, and someone's figured out this code." So maybe they froze all the accounts pending an investigation. They might burn some people. Some people might get their money back, and all of them are going to get replacement cards that are not in sequence. I saw these cards 10 years ago whenever I started working at Bank of America as an actual banker. So I know that these cards have been in existence for a long time. So believe you me, knowing Bank of America's sequence with temporary debit cards, I do believe that there is a sequence with these EDD cards as well, and that is one part of it. So I really believe in my heart of hearts that if there's not associate misconduct involved in this, it'll be shocking to me because how the hell are you going to get the social security number and the 3-digit code unless you have some smart guy out there just trying to figure out a program on how to crack the code? It's easier if you have all that information, of course, or basically Bank of America just dropped the ball and they've had security issue for years and they never thought about it until millions of people filed for unemployment and people found ways to game the system. I wanted to wrap it up with this. So I mentioned earlier that Bank of America would rather deny a claim and never have to deal with that customer again. That customer get frustrated and never want to ever bank with them again or even try. And the bank will say, well, it's no loss to us because this person's not making a lot of money for us anyway. Bank of America is going through this transitional phase where they talk about revenue. They talk about preferred customers. They have a preferred rewards program in the consumer side of things where the question was, anytime you open an account for a customer, how much was their deposit to open the account? They don't care if it's a little 18-year-old kid starting out with $50 that he got for graduation. No, they want people with big amounts of money, 20, 50, $100,000. They want to get them to Merrill Lynch, or now it's called Merrill. They want to get them to BofA Private Bank, formerly known as Wealth Management, US Trust, and all that stuff. They want people to have money and resources because guess what? They don't want to pay for tellers. In fact, the teller position is going to be gone in a couple of years. You know that $20 an hour minimum wage thing that they promised everyone at Bank of America? Well, that's true. Everyone's getting paid $20 an hour. But the lowest person on the totem pole is now going to be a salesperson. Tellers are going to be a thing of the past. They're not going to have cash at a branch. They're not going to have the resources the way that they do now. And they're going to push you to go out to the ATM. And hell, even barring that, they're going to say, you know what? We don't handle cash anymore. So if you have a check, you're going to do a mobile deposit, and then your debit card will be loaded up the next day. That's the way big banking is. Can we stop it? Well, I sincerely doubt it. But as a consumer advocate and someone who worked in an impoverished state, the state of New Mexico, where my county, Doña Ana County, New Mexico, has 33% of people in the poverty rate there. You have all these people poor, a lot of these people paycheck to paycheck, and you have no hope for them to grow their balances. That's why Bank of America left. They closed my branch in 2018, and why I was fired a few days later for it. It's frustrating. It's a horrible part of life. Now I know what you're going to say. Well, there's other banks everywhere. Wells Fargo, Chase, Citi, all the local banks and credit unions. And yes, there are. There are these places. And there's a lot of banks that are great banks, and they would love to have these customers. But a lot of people become unbanked whenever things like this happen. Whenever they get defrauded out of thousands of dollars, they lose trust in the system. They lose trust in everything about the system. And they say, you know what, I'm just going to go cash my check at the liquor store, the check cashing place in the liquor store. Or Check and Go, or in New Mexico, they have Fast Books. All these places, they're like, we're just going to cash our check here and not have to deal with a bank. I'm going to cash my check at Walmart. Why the hell do you think Walmart cashes tax refund checks? One, because they know that you're going to spend your money at Walmart. And two, well, we know that the check is good and we're not even going to BS you with an account. You know, maybe we'll give you one of those preloaded debit cards as well to put in there. But we don't want that business. They just want to have a service. And they know that they can get tons of unbanked people. And guess what? There are so many people that go to Walmart just for the fact that they can cash checks and stuff like that because banks screwed them over. Maybe they can't open up a conventional bank account because a bank put a check systems note on there. The people who are unemployed, for the most part before the pandemic, generally are people who are on hard times. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of resources. And that's frankly not Bank of America material in their eyes anymore. They're wanting to limit resources. They want to limit the amount of cash that they order. They want to push Zelle, their money transfer service. They want to push people to do mobile banking. You'll notice and take a look at a lot of the news stories this summer in California, Arizona, Nevada, and even in Maryland, where Bank of America unemployment's over there. There was just a lot of weird, unexplained closures, and they weren't virus related. They weren't virus related. They just said the center's temporarily closed. There was news stories on the CBS affiliate in Las Vegas, Nevada, Bakersfield, California. I remember another one. There's a bunch of California news outfits that were talking about just unexplained closures this summer. And it wasn't virus related. In fact, the virus was actually kind of at a low point there. It was because they were out of money, because they didn't want to order money, because they didn't want to have to deal with all these damn people with these unemployment cards who are basically, you know how they say it's not a lending library whenever you're thumbing through magazines in a grocery store, something like that. They know that you're not going to buy anything. They know that you're going to be standing there with a debit card saying, "Hey, give me 1,000 of your dollars. Here's my ID. Did you want to open an account, sir? No, I don't have any money. I'm unemployed." They get that money to take it out elsewhere. And all of a sudden you had to pay for that money. They had to pay for the service of ordering that money to give to you, and you're never going to do business with them again. So guess what? They magically closed. They magically closed all these branches, and they just said circumstances beyond our control, because they didn't want to order the money. There was talk of a cash shortage and a coin shortage this past summer. And yes, there was part of that. But here's the one thing that Bank of America will never tell you, and I can tell you this as a vault teller at Bank of America for 2-3 years. Bank of America knows exactly to the freaking penny how much money is going to go in and out at every single branch. You would get this thing called ICOM with Bank of America every couple of days, especially in smaller banks like the one that I was at. And they would tell you, "Hey, you have too much money in your vault. You have $240,120.50. You need to ship out $93,100 of that because we want to keep you at that threshold. If you didn't send that money out, you were out of compliance. And if you brought too much money in, they'll check the end of day balances and they'll say you have too much money, send more out. Or if you don't have enough, they'll say, hey, you need more money because we expect the third of the month to be a busy day of the month. So let's bring all that money in. We need you to bring in $100,000 for our customers." I think they got tired of that because there's a cost involved in that. Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan on, I believe, Fox Business Network last summer said it cost about $5 billion to move all this money around across the country. So they're looking at ways of curtailing that. And one way is digital payments, direct deposit, all this stuff, virtual cash. A cashless society is something that in 2020 America is not an unexpected conversation to have, but it is for a lot of people who are unbanked or they're underbanked at that point in time. I know I can sound a little loopy with a lot of my statements here, but a lot of it makes perfect sense. Think about those unexplained closures at those branches. And, and even if they said, well, we don't know, we didn't realize that we didn't have enough money to operate for our customers that day. They knew because they're part of the system. Bank of America is the one that generates those cards. I'm sure they have the data that basically told them, hey, we have 150,000 unemployed people with these cards here, and we loaded up $13 million in their cards. So we expect all of them to go to Bank of America. So you should order money accordingly. They didn't want to do that because, like I said, the cost of paying these couriers, these armored car people to bring the money in, to refill the ATMs, not hell with that. It's better to just keep the ATMs closed. Don't pull them any extra to add more money or to pull the deposits. Don't even open the branches and restock your vault. Let's just close for a week. Let's just do outbound calls and service calls and say, hey, well, we're closed. We're wondering if there's anything we could do for you over the phone. That's the way Bank of America was operating this past summer. They didn't want to spend the money to give you the money for a person who was never going to be an account holder. Period. End of story. That's the biggest travesty right there because they don't see those people as customers. Those people see themselves as Bank of America customers and they're getting screwed. And that's the unfortunate part of it. Man, there's no other way around that other than I'm sure Bank of America is no longer going to be in the unemployment card business after next year. And there's so many people, a bipartisan effort in California where they're basically talking about we need to hold Bank of America accountable. Bank of America doesn't care, man. They don't care. Look at all the complaints on Twitter. Look at about all the people, all the news stories of all the people with their claims being denied. Their claims are being denied. They're valid claims. There's people who are incapacitated and their money is stolen in another state. They don't even have a freaking vehicle and their card is being used in another state. And Bank of America is saying that it was you that did the charge. You have an untrained staff of people at Bank of America fraud claims. I've dealt with those people before. They're not that great. And the ones that are great are overwhelmed with all the stuff that's going on. And it was in one of these stories that I read where basically they couldn't give time frames on fraud claims anymore. You see all of this going on and it all makes sense, but no one puts two and two together. It can be associate misconduct. It can be that very crappy website. The fact that it doesn't have a stupid chip on that damn debit card does not mean anything if the cards are in sequence. Because if you can find a way to duplicate the card and steal the money out of a Bank of America ATM, knowing that Bank of America is not going to double dip and take that loss twice to give to the customer who got the money stolen, it's a victimless crime. The only victim is the person who got defrauded, and Bank of America thinks they're the one that are filing a false claim, for God's sakes. It's overtly complicated, and there's no other way to say it. Bank of America is 100% complicit on this. Hell, I don't even blame the state of California. I only blame the state of California for one thing, for doing business with Bank of America. But in 2010 or 11 or whenever they got it set up, Bank of America's there at a different time. They were coming out of the bailout. They were coming out of this horrible economy where I remember in 08 and 09, they weren't doing credit cards. They weren't doing loans. Hell, we probably closed more accounts than we opened around that time. And then it started revving up that sales mentality, the way that Wells Fargo is always documented for, always known for. Bank of America is worse in many senses. And you can look at my project and I can tell you 100 times over, I was a part of that problem as a personal banker. This is what they do. And as a consumer advocate, as someone who has a podcast that has thousands of listeners, who has 10 million impressions on Twitter and a loyal 3,000 follower fan base, and growing, mind you, I know that what I speak is correct. I'm not saying this out of spite with Bank of America. Hell, I liked Bank of America when I worked there. Up until the day that I got fired, I was this optimistic guy with Bank of America. I knew that hard work pays off and you can work your way up the chain and anything is possible at that place. Until you realize who's in charge, until you realize that they don't care, until you realize that the whole goal of inside the bank branch is not to have as many customers as possible, to find a way to decline transactions, to find a way to push them out to the ATM or to push them out to use digital methods. That's the Bank of America that I know and that I'm aware of. Ask a Bank of America manager about digital migration in 2018 and 19. I can talk about that. Digital migration is something that I talk about in my project, and I think it's disgusting. I think it's basically just passing the buck and saying to the customers, you're not important anymore. Go and play with the ATM. Go and play with your telephone. Do mobile banking that way. This is the way that it's going to be, and there's got to be a better way for this. And yes, some people can get direct deposit with their unemployment, and they're like, what the hell is everyone harping about? I got my money. And why didn't you do it this way? Well, some people didn't know, or some people say that, hey, this is probably more convenient or more secure, and I don't trust that other way. It's because of the lack of communication between Bank of America and the state and the customers is saying, hey, here's your options, and here's the pros and cons to all of that. It's more than just, hey, you're going to get a card and there's going to be money in there. You need to talk to these people about it because you're sending them out there with a loaded gun. This debit card is a weapon, and it can be used against them. And all of a sudden they're going to be out of money and can't pay their bills and they lost their job. And then Bank of America has the guts to say, well, we think the claim is false and we're reversing the transaction. So we're not paying you back the money that was taken out of your account. Tens of thousands of people are going through that, and it's frustrating. I've had a couple of requests to do interviews with a couple of different media outlets about this. And I wasn't comfortable discussing it at first because I knew all these things. I believe all these things that I talk about. The sequential aspect of debit cards, the simple fact that it could be associate misconduct, the simple fact that Bank of America probably froze 300,000 debit cards because those cards were in sequence and they felt that there was a mass compromise possible. They'll never cop to the fact that they believe that there was a mass compromise. That's just them. The fact that the chip card means nothing, trust me when I say that, it means nothing. You can find someone who had the card in their hand and someone used it at another place. It is quite possible to have those cards stolen from you virtually. I just showed you how crappy the website is. Go to EDD Bank of America website and play around with that. You'll be amazed how far you get before you get denied. It's astounding. So any computer programmer who can come up with a program to kind of crack the code of a social and a 3-digit security code can find a way to activate a card, and then they can find a way to screw with you. There's no doubt in my mind that there's a lot of layers to this. I assume that I know that California grows garlic, the garlic capital of the world, Gilroy, California. You have all that layers of peel and garlic, all these things. And there's some Bank of America crappiness with every piece of garlic layer until you get to the meat of it itself. All of this stuff surrounds the core issue right there. And it's the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of people that are going through different things. There's different layers to how they're getting screwed over. Bank of America is not answering any questions, and Bank of America is not even being helpful. So, much like one's breath whenever you consume garlic, it freaking stinks, all right? My name is James, the Notorious Banker, and I implore you to go to my Twitter account, @BankBetterGuy. I implore you to check out my TikTok, Notorious Banker. I do some videos there and try to be informative to the banking customer world out there. I have a podcast called The Notorious Banker. Go to my YouTube channel. Just look for The Notorious Banker on there as well, and you'll find me. And if you believe in what I'm saying, if you need help, I would really appreciate a contribution to my Patreon account. That's patreon.com/notoriousbanker. Any donations are warranted. So I do this full time. I work 90 hours a week talking to people on social media. Sometimes I'm just BSing with them, just trying to let them vent, because banks don't even let them vent their frustration at the bank. I just try to talk to them, and maybe I can help people from time to time. I have helped recover a substantial amount of money in fraud claims and fee reversals and everything, just by showing people how to effectively communicate with their bank, because I was a banker and I know keywords that those bankers look for anytime they're talking to customers. So if you believe in me, patreon.com/notoriousbanker. I do have methods of accepting contributions through Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. I only say this because I do this because I love helping customers. I love banking. I never want to work for a major bank again because of the notoriousness, ironically enough, of the sales push that banks have. Wells Fargo had unauthorized fake accounts. Bank of America had very much real accounts. All of them were real accounts that we opened, but we oversold the hell out of a lot of people. A lot of bigger banks are the same way as well. So I can never do that to customers again. I give them honest information. I give them honest customer service on here. And I have one thing now that I always had at Bank of America, but it's the one thing that matters in this case and that Bank of America doesn't have. I'm ethical. I have ethics. I care about these people. I see these horror stories in California. I see these horror stories across the country, and it affects me. I used to drink when I worked at Bank of America because it was so depressing to see a bank really not give a damn about people. Well, now I don't drink, and now I'm in a position to help people because I am not getting paid by Bank of America. I'm getting paid by my listeners. I'm getting paid by people who contribute to my project, who help me out, who allow me to function as a notorious banker and spend hours upon hours a day helping people, which is what I love to do. My name is James BofA, also known as James the Notorious Banker. James@thenotoriousbanker.com is my email. Get in touch with me if you want to talk. I'm definitely here for you, but follow me on Twitter as well, and we can talk some more on there. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I really hope you learned something today.